Hello and welcome to Pete's Couch. Today we're doing a review video and I'm going to be focusing on inov-8 shoes. inov-8's had a pretty complex range over the last couple of years with names that have come and gone, but we're going to try and simplify things here with two shoes that I think are pretty relevant for obstacle racers. First of all, we've got the X-Talon 225, which is the newest X-Talon in their range, and we've also got the X-Claw 275, which is a new name, but it's similar to the old Mudclaw. So why do we need to look at two shoes here when we've actually got pretty obvious similarities between them? They've both got very good treads on the underneath. They're both going to handle mud. But actually, the differences are quite key and they're going to suit different people in different situations. For starters, the X-Talon is red with a black trim. The X-Claw is black with a red trim. But apart from that, you can also see straight on the X-Talon is very much narrower and more sleek than the X-Claw. These are both the same size. You can also see underneath the shoes that the X-Talon has far less going on underneath. It's a lower profile, whereas the X-Claw, that has a far more going on, not just on the heel, but throughout the whole shoe. There's a lot more padding here. So we may as well tackle the elephant in the room, and that is the major downside of inov-8 over the last couple of years. Although they've got a great reputation for grip, a great reputation for being light and agile, the worst bit of criticism that they've had has been that they've tended to split quite a lot, quite early on in their lives, around the side of the toes and across the top a little bit. Now this is something that inov-8 have taken pretty seriously and are actually now doing something about. Both of these shoes have got a new type of upper on them, and you can see that it's kind of more like a crocodile skin kind of feel. So the X-Talon 225 is the latest X-Talon in inov-8's range and sits somewhere between the 200 and the 212 in that it's got a 3mm footbed and a 4mm drop, a heel to toe differential. So it's still pretty minimal. And also it has the precision fit in inov-8's range. So with this X-Claw it has the standard fit, with this it has the precision fit, which makes it a fair bit narrower. Apart from that, also it has the new second generation X-Talon sole, which apparently wears a little bit better, and it's got this new dynamic fascia band technology in it, which apparently just makes it all a little bit more springy. So then with the X-Claw, we've got a 6mm footbed and an 8mm heel to toe differential, so an 8mm drop. So this has got far more going on underfoot. It's going to absorb shock a lot better. Also with it being a standard fit, it's going to be better for people with wider feet and just more comfortable for everyone else. Also really key as well is the outer sole. This is a new outer sole, but it's very similar to the old Mudclaw. This is now the grippiest sole in inov-8's range. So like the Mudclaw, it's going to be really great at holding into mud and also really quick at shedding it back off again. Similar to the new X-Talon sole as well, it's got the harder rubber built into it to make it last better, and it's got the same fascia band thing to make it a little bit more springy too. Hello and welcome back. It's now a couple of weeks on and I've been trying both of these shoes out in a variety of conditions and they've behaved pretty much how I expected them to. First of all, in their similarities, they've both got excellent grip in mud. The X-Claw sole is something else. You know, I've been stood stationary on slippery 30-degree clay slopes and they felt completely locked in. Similarly, the X-Talon's grip pretty much how you'd expect them to. The X-Talons have got a great reputation for their grip, and because they've got a slightly thinner sole, you feel a lot more connected with the ground as well, so your foot almost wraps around those little parts of the trail and the little stones, the little roots. It's going to help with the grip on top of that, so these feel particularly reactive underfoot. And then in terms of the upper, certainly they seem, as I said before, to be a little bit more hardened than what we've seen in inov-8s of the past. And so hopefully they'll last longer. It's a bit early to say whether these will hold out. Certainly there's no signs of wear yet. So maybe we'll report back in a couple months about that. But another thing I noticed about this new upper as well is that it seems almost splash resistant. So, you know, as you're going through puddles or you're going through light elements of water, it tends to kind of just roll off it quite nicely rather than soak into the material. Obviously that's not really going to matter when it comes to full submergence, but you know, to kind of keep that element of dryness to your feet is quite nice to start with. And of course, when it comes to shedding water back out after full submersions, both of them behave in the same way as inov-8s always have done. They always do shed water really well, and I think that's partly because there's nothing really absorbent in the shoe to soak water up into. They are minimal designs. There's nothing squishy or spongy about them particularly. But this is where we come on to the reason why we've got two shoes in this review, and that is that these are actually extremely different. Massively different in the way that they feel. With the X-Talon, you've got an extremely locked-in shoe. It's as soon as you put it on, it's tight around every element of it, to the point of being maybe slightly uncomfortable for those with wider feet. I definitely feel pretty tight around my forefoot, and this is the reason why I wouldn't necessarily want to wear these for a really long distance. I think it would just get a little bit too painful. But for those shorter distances, it just feels great. You feel locked in. You feel like there's no movement in the shoe at all as you're going along these technical trails. You feel really agile, and basically the shoe kind of feels at one with your foot. In contrast, the X-Claw has a much looser feel about it. From the minute you put it on, you can feel air around your toes. And actually, something I had to be a little bit careful about is that I really had to tighten up those laces in the midfoot because I wanted an element that I did feel locked in. I need to feel locked in to a certain extent in a trail shoe so it doesn't feel like the shoe is flopping around beneath your feet. So getting your lacing right is probably going to be particularly important with this shoe. So in summary, we can confidently say that both of these shoes are going to be great for obstacle racing. The only question mark that's ever really been around inov-8 has been their lastability and their toughness. And the initial signs are pretty good for these, and let's hope they carry on holding together. We'll report back in a couple of months, but like I said, everything feels a lot better. And I guess you'd want me to say which one would be the better choice for you, and I can't really do that. It's going to depend a lot, firstly, on the size and shape of your foot and how these shoes feel on your foot. And it's also going to depend a lot on the type of runs that you do, the types of races you do, then particularly the type of distance that you do. So if you're going to be raring to go on the start line of a 10K race, ready to smash it, the X-Talon is potentially going to be a really great choice for you. There's something about this shoe that really makes you want to move your feet fast. However, if you're a little bit more like me and maybe you're going at a slightly slower pace and maybe you want a little bit more comfort, or you're doing longer distances, I think me in particular, I'm going to get a lot more wear out of the X-Claw. I would probably combine this with a shoe that doesn't have quite a hefty lug to it. Currently for me, that is the old Race Ultra, which is a similar shoe. It's got a similar build to it. The only massive difference really is the sole. It's got much smaller lugs on it, so it's going to be more comfortable on lighter trails rather than hefty muddy trails like this one will be for. This unfortunately has been discontinued and it's been replaced with the Trail Talon, rather confusingly. Not to be confused with the X-Talon. It does have small lugs like this. I think it's nice to have a set of trail shoes that isn't quite as aggressive on the underside as both of these. But when it comes to the traditional British muddy obstacle race, you can't go wrong. See you next time.